Okay, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. O'Brien, you may call your next witness.
Your Honor, for the defense's last witness, we call William Knight to the stand.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Sir, would you pull that microphone as close as practical?
Seems right, I think. Is that good?
Sir, would you give us your full name, spell your last name?
William Knight, K-N-I-G-H-T.
And your address, sir?
Where I lived before here.
Yes.
102-4 Lady Catherine, Streetsboro.
That's in Portage County, is it not?
Yes,
sir?
it is.
Okay. And can we have your age, sir?
64.
What is your marital status?
Widower.
What was your wife's name?
Karen.
When did she pass away?
November 2nd, 2015.
Do you have any? Did you and Karen have any children?
One daughter, Michelle.
And Michelle's married to Curtis?
Yes, she is.
And you then have how many grandchildren?
One.
That would be Seth.
Yes, it would be.
During your working years, I'm sorry, are you retired?
Yes.
What did you do during your working years?
Construction.
Any specific type of construction?
Home remodeling.
Mr. Knight, do you have any criminal record?
No.
You have to keep your voice up.
Yes, sir. No criminal record.
All right. Do you have any other type of, besides your driver's license, do you have any other type of permit?
Only a concealed carry.
Okay. And handing you what's been remarked for purposes of identification as defendant T. You recognize that?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
My Ohio driver's license and my CCW permit.
Okay. On March 20th, 2017, was that permit valid?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I'm going to call your attention to your health as of March 20th, 2017, and then your health as of today. What was your health like a year ago?
Quite good. Since 2009, when diagnosed with diabetes, my A1C has been between 5.5 and 7, basically.
Right, any other problems?
Coronary artery disease.
All right.
Several heart attacks and stents and 5-way bypass, and then 3 of those failed, more stents, and then I had I was VTAC at one point, pretty bad shape, and I had to have an ablation for that.
Now that was all that prior to March 20th, 2017?
Yes, it was.
Now since March 20th of 2017, has anything changed?
Objection. Relevance.
Oh, okay. All right. Mr. Knight, let's call your attention to March 20th, 2017. Were you in Summit County that day?
Yes, it was.
All right. And what did you do that day?
I just spent the day at home. And then,
Do you live alone?
yes.
Okay. Out there in what, Streetsboro?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So you were home alone, then what happens?
Had dinner, got cleaned up, went to the cemetery to visit my wife's grave.
Then where do you go after you leave the cemetery?
I ended up going over to drop in and visit my daughter.
Now, is this an announced visit or you just
No.
pop in?
I just popped in.
And who was there when you dropped in on March 20th?
When I parked and got out and went to go in commonly through the rear, my daughter was on the deck, her deck. I met her there.
Who else was there?
My grandson was there, and then within moments, my son-in-law peeked out the door in silhouette.
Okay. Now, was there any conversation between your daughter and you that day about going anywhere?
No.
Okay. Was there any conversation between you and Kurt about going anywhere?
Together?
Yes.
No.
Okay. Did sometime after you got there, did Kurt make a request of you?
Yes, he did.
What was that request?
He wanted me to possibly, he wasn't sure, but to possibly haul his motorcycle trailer to haul a dirt bike.
Okay. And he wanted you to haul it, is that right? His
He
trailer?
wanted me to, with my truck to pull his trailer, yes.
All right. And for what purpose again?
To possibly, he's going to get his dirt bike back.
Was he sure about it or just
No,
told
he
you?
wasn't sure. He supposedly police escort, and it depended on what, the results of that was, if they recovered it together.
All right. So do you wind up putting the trailer on your truck?
Oh, no, realizing, what we're going to haul, 175 pound dirt bike, I don't know if that's dry weight or with gas and all, that's probably heavier, but I would have room in my truck if I pulled out a 2x4 thing to keep my tools from sliding. I just pull that out and slide those forward and could lay it in there, except I had concerns of gas leakage and oil. So I would rather just lay my tailgate down. We set it up there and throw the cargo straps around it.
You've seen photos before the last day or two about the back of your truck, correct?
Oh, yes. Mhm.
All right. And there was some question whether there's room in there that with those other boxes and a dirt bike.
Certainly doesn't look like it, but if you reach back in about 2 feet beyond those boxes, you see immediately there's a tube before you raise that up out of there. Just push these things forward.
So it was your
Or
intention,
restack them.
if you got a dirt bike, that you could haul it away in your truck?
Right, one way or another.
Okay. With respect to Kurt and you and your daughter, what was the transportation idea that day?
Michelle and I certainly weren't sure we were going anywhere, or me, There was no idea Kurt was going to meet with police.
So was the idea that you and your daughter were going to wait at home until Kurt told you he had the cops, or what?
No, not really. In fact, before he ended up calling, I was moments away from finishing my coffee and leaving.
Okay. So you finally got a phone call.
Michelle got a phone call.
And who was it from?
It was from Kurt.
Okay. And what was the essence of that phone call?
Well, I'm not hearing the conversation, but Kurt wants us to head over.
Okay. So you take your truck, is that
I
correct?
took my truck.
And Michelle's with you?
Michelle's with me.
Anybody else in the truck?
No.
Right. You didn't bother to unload the truck?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No.
You still aren't sure you're going to even have a dirt bike, is that
Right.
right?
I wouldn't have unloaded it anyway, just moved that stuff forward. If
So-
we were to lay it down, but
Eventually,
Not to.
do you get to what we call Dan Mead?
yes, I do.
All right. Do you get there directly, or do you take a roundabout?
We got lost. We got lost.
Right?
And so it was a roundabout trip.
So nowhere along the line do you meet up with a person by the name of Justin Badgett?
Not me, no.
All right. Prior to you going over there on March 20th, 2017, have you ever even been on Dan Mead?
I would say no, unless it was back when I think there was a landfill down there.
All right.
and maybe a couple ways in and out of that, I'm not sure.
So you don't think you'd ever been there?
I don't think so.
Okay. Do you eventually find Danmead?
Yes.
And when you get to Danmead, what happens first?
I turned the corner and I told Michelle I don't see a cruiser. And she saw Kurt's truck and she started opening the truck door and she says, "Dad, the police aren't coming." And she slid out and went on up to, of course, look for her husband.
All right. At that point in time, does Kurt know the police aren't coming?
I would assume from what she told me when she got out of the truck that he must know. He probably informed her.
All right. So you get
Not that I was correlating that at the time, but
you get onto Danmead and Michelle hops out of the truck.
yeah.
Where do you put your truck first?
I'm behind Kurt's truck.
Where's Michelle?
Oh, as soon as I got stopped, she's out of the truck.
Where does she go first?
She headed off up toward the north, toward the front of Kurt's truck.
All right.
And then there was a car in the way, and I pulled up to it, and it eventually backed over and parked properly and let me through. Or it was a small van.
So you initially pull up behind Kurt's truck,
Right.
but you have to wait a while. Somebody else is blocking the road?
Yeah, I didn't know if they were working on the cars on the left here or if there were something going on that I couldn't see.
When you first pull up behind Kurt's truck, do you ever get out of the truck?
No.
So eventually you go where?
Eventually, this guy moved over and parked properly, and I went up the street and turned around one of the driveways and parked in front of a fire hydrant.
And when you park by the fire hydrant, your truck is pointed toward where?
Eastwood.
Okay. Do you ever leave the area of that truck during the whole incident?
No, I don't think I did.
Okay. All right.
Police arrived too quickly.
Okay. Why do you park? We've heard an estimate of 4 or 5 car lengths apart from Kurt's truck to your truck.
Well, when I pulled in,
Do you agree with that length?
yeah, I was parked up the block a little bit.
Okay. And we use the fire hydrant as a landmark, correct?
Okay, correct.
All right. So when you get out of your truck when you park by the fire hydrant?
No, not immediately, no.
All right. What do you see down by Kurt's truck?
I saw confusion and verbal arguing.
All right. Do you see any punches thrown or anything like that?
No.
Can you hear an argument?
I can hear shouting at times.
Okay. Can you hear what words are being shouted?
No.
Okay. You can hear noise, but you can't make out
Right.
words. Is that the idea?
Correct.
Okay. And is it light or dark out at this point?
It's dark.
Okay. And what are you seeing down there? What motions or movement do you see down? Let's use Kurt's truck as the centerpiece.
All right.
Okay. What do you see?
I see Kurt and other people in front of the truck, and I see Kurt and a man on a motorcycle. And
Right. Where are these people in relation to the street versus the sidewalk?
they're in the street in front of Kurt's truck.
Kurt's truck is in the street?
Yeah, they're right up in his grill.
Okay. All right. Can you tell where Michelle is?
Michelle's over to I guess a little toward the dead end, away from him. She's on her cell phone.
Okay. Can you hear what she's saying on the cell phone?
I heard her at one point say they're getting aggressive with my husband, and I could tell she was like calm when she said it.
Okay. Now, what do you see next?
Next, the guy on the dirt bike kind of turned to her, and I kind of could hear something. Maybe he spoke to her, and then he turned back to Kurt, and he didn't seem happy. Then there was two other guys here, a white guy and a black guy, and the white guy says, "Don't tell him that." And there's a black guy, and he much more aggressively spoke to Michelle and says, "Don't tell them that." And he started to go to Michelle, and then he stopped, and then the white guy approached her.
Okay.
And then,
Did anybody ever get to or touch Michelle?
I don't think so.
All right.
Was up to her, but didn't touch her,
All right. Then what
as far as I could tell. As far as I could tell,
All right.
she hadn't been touched.
It's dark, you said, right?
Yeah, we're dealing with, the lighting's bad. And,
All right. What do you see next?
Kurt and this man on this dirt bike are having of course, a verbal argument, and I see Kurt holding a cell phone in one hand, he's holding a white paper, which I imagine was his type.
And?
It seemed like I heard him on the loud side say, "This is mine," and
Who is he?
Kurt,
Okay.
son-in-law, and I assume it's a title, and I see cell phone and flashlights on it, like, and I'm not sure if he's like took a picture of the VIN number on the bike and showing the man that it matches, or
But you see a flashlight.
Right.
Out of a cell phone?
right.
All right. You see a piece of white paper in his other hand?
Right.
All right. Then what do you see Kurt do?
Then pretty much at this point, the man on the motorcycle speaking to the guy in the minivan, and at that time I took that license number, that whatever it was.
Would that have been Mr. Bench who testified first this morning?
It appears to be.
Okay.
Bench and the man on the motorcycle shouted back and forth. Then Bench drove away, and wow,
Is the motorcycle on, the dirt bike on at this point in time?
almost simultaneously as the car's trying to go away, the man on the dirt bike kickstarts that 3 times and got it running. And it looked to me like he was, of course it was, sounded like it was redlining, and he's popping the clutch, bumping into the curb. And bouncing back a little bit. His feet and legs were moving too. I could only assume he was popping the clutch and ramming him for some reason. But
Have you ever owned a motorcycle or a dirt bike?
yes, I have.
Okay. So you see this clutch either being
I'm not
popped
seeing,
or
I'm
not?
I'm too far to see the clutch, but the bike keeps lunging forward.
Can you hear the engine?
Oh, yes.
And what's the engine like?
About to blow up, I'm thinking.
It's that loud?
It's very loud.
Okay. Then what do you see?
A bunch of people run off, and then the motorcycle turns to, let's see, we're north. So the motorcycle turned toward the west, probably in front of Kurt's truck, and then went down between the cars.
Down toward where?
Toward Eastwood.
Okay. Now you are standing where?
I'm in front of my truck at this
Okay.
point.
Now you have a weapon, is that correct?
Right.
All right. And it's this .357?
Yes, sir.
5-shot revolver?
Yes, sir.
Smith & Wesson?
Yes.
All right. Any doubt that that's your weapon?
Oh, no.
Why do you have your weapon?
I just happen to have it with me.
Did Kurt at any time when you're over at their house ask you to bring your weapon?
No.
How often do you have that weapon or carry that weapon?
Hadn't had it long, not really used to the weight, so 85% of the time maybe.
Okay, but not all the time.
No.
Okay. Now, had you ever had to use it prior to March 20th, 2017?
No.
So you have, the weapon is on, what, in a holster?
Yes, it is.
All right. You get out of the truck, and what do you see at that point in time?
Well, that's when the argument, it seems like the arguments get heated between Kurt and the man on the dirt bike.
All right.
And then,
Now, where is Kurt at this point in time?
he's standing against his grill.
Okay. Where is Michelle at this point in time?
She's behind, roughly behind the guy on the dirt bike over in here somewhere, moving around.
All right. She's moving from spot to spot?
Yeah, she's moving. I'm not, at that point, I'm really concentrating on that front tire where it's hitting Kurt at and trying to judge if he's being injured.
All right. So, how do you consider the movement of the bike?
Violent.
All right.
I assumed he was attacking, but
All right. Then what happened? Well, first of all, if you can see her, is she still on the phone, meaning Michelle?
she's still on the phone.
Okay. So then what happens?
That dirt bike had bounced back 7 to 10 times against Kurt, regardless of whether it was Kurt trying to hold on to it or being attacked, and that's when I fired a warning shot.
Has Kurt got his hands on the handlebars?
His hands are up over the
All
front of the
right.
handlebars.
Okay. You fired a warning shot.
Yes, I did.
Everybody, well, let's put it this way. The bike and Kurt and Keith Johnson are all in front of what?
They're right in front of Kurt's truck.
Okay? And where is Michelle?
She's over in here moving around somewhere.
Is she on the sidewalk, in the driveway, in the street? Where?
I'd say she's right around the driveway at this point.
All right? But you're concentrating on what?
I'm concentrating on what I'm interpreting as going to be a real bad fight and trying to break it up.
That's in and around the dirt bike.
That's right.
Okay? What happened? You fire a warning shot.
Yes.
All right? Now, we heard, I apologize if I don't get this name right, Mr. Capitoni, you heard him testify yesterday, did you not?
Yes, I did.
And I think you heard him testify that he does not recommend a warning shot.
He more than that, and I agree with him.
Okay. Is there anything when you took the course in Portage County, did anybody there say, don't ever fire a warning shot?
I think someone brought the question up and he answered it.
Okay.
Pretty much like what he did right here.
All right. So why did you fire?
Desperation. Desperation. Yeah,
Well,
I felt Kurt had probably already took some leg injury, and I was trying to.
Well, what were you so desperate about? What were you trying to accomplish?
I wanted him to stop.
There's a small group of people in and around this dirt bike?
Yeah, there's some people there.
All right. So what's your objective?
My objective?
with the warning shot,
to get them to stop.
all right? Does anybody pay attention to the warning shot?
I thought I fired two, but I didn't want to fire the first one, and I'm feeling that feeling was so strong that I didn't. But when I did fire a warning shot, they took, Mr. Johnson rode off.
Where did you aim the Smith & Wesson when you fired the warning shot?
Into the air.
That can be dangerous too, can't it?
I'm not a fan of that, no.
Say again, please, sir?
I'd say I'm not a fan of discharging a weapon, without certainty at any time.
All right. So you fire a warning shot, the bike takes off, is that right?
Right.
All right. Now, where do you see the bike go?
He headed off very rapidly toward Eastwood.
Okay. Anything happen between him taking off and getting to Eastwood?
The bike come up in a wheel and came out from under him.
Okay. Did you see him hit anything?
He hit the last car around the wheel well, rocker panel.
All right. Then what did you see the bike do?
It went down to the ground and went off, shut off.
All right. And then what?
From my point of view, the man, he didn't go down when that bike came out from under him, but he staggered a little bit. He turned around, ran 6 or 7 paces toward me, looked up this way, turned around, and walked back and pulled the bike up off the ground, kicked it one time, and it started right up. And then he did
Did you
like
see? All right. So he got it started again.
very easily, yes.
All right. So at one point in time, he's headed toward Eastwood, and the bike goes down.
Right.
He gets it started again.
Yes.
Now he's headed back up.
He did
Dan, is that right?
a donut,
All right, so then
spinning back tire.
All right. So he's coming back up to, let's once again use Kurt's black truck as a landmark. So he's coming back up toward Kurt's truck.
Yeah, of course, he's coming past that and
All right, well,
head north on the street.
all right. Where's Kurt at this time, if you remember?
Kurt eventually popped out around the corner of his truck. I have no idea what he's doing. He gave testimony, he thinks he made it to his back bumper. I disagree with that.
All right. In any event,
Yes, sir.
what do you remember seeing?
I remember seeing Keith Johnson coming toward us with all the mayhem and meanness he could muster.
With what?
With all the mayhem and meanness he could muster. And eventually Kurt was out here. I realized Michelle was out here.
When you say out here, what do you mean?
She's starting to cross the street, so that's putting her in a rut
Crossing the street going where?
toward me.
Okay. And Curtis where?
And Curtis came around the front of his truck.
All right.
And this is all going quite quickly. And anyway, the motorcycle and Curtis met up, and that's when I fired that shot, second shot.
Does your daughter eventually get to you?
Yes, she does.
Is she still on the phone?
Yes, she is. She's quite upset.
What happens to her and the phone?
I took the phone from her and talked to the 911 operator.
What did you tell the 911 operator?
I told them my name and social security number. And I was worried, I had concerns about the police showing up in whatever direction they might, and I didn't want them to see a weapon. And
Well, all right. Did you say anything else to the dispatch? After your...
she asked me
Wait till I ask the question,
Sorry.
okay? Your daughter's on the phone,
Yes.
right? She's on the phone to the dispatcher, right?
Right.
Okay. Now, tell the jury what you said when you took the phone from your daughter?
Social security number, name, she was asking me questions, so I was answering those questions to the best of my knowledge.
All right. Did you say anything else to the dispatcher?
I believe I eventually told her that I secured the weapon and where.
Okay. Did you tell her anything about the fact that you used the weapon?
Yeah, she asked me where I shot the man. I think because Michelle had told her that I'd shot the man.
Did you tell the dispatcher why you shot him?
I believe I did.
What was that?
That my family was in danger. I can't remember much. I was quite shock had overtaken me.
But what was in your mind at that point in time? You saw this, you testified you saw this dirt bike coming up the street, is that right?
Yeah.
And you saw that your
I saw.
son-in-law is down there by the truck.
Yeah, and then I
And
realized.
your daughter's doing what?
I got a glimpse of Michelle,
Okay.
and
So what did you think at that point in time?
I thought we're all in trouble
Why?
because of a racing machine coming at us, and it was bearing right down on Curtis.
What do you think might happen?
I thought he'd be seriously injured.
What about your daughter?
Same thing.
After you fired the second shot, what did you do?
The man on the motorcycle collapsed, as did the motorcycle, and I guess pretty soon I took the phone from Michelle.
What did you do with the weapon?
Then I put the weapon up under the fire hydrant.
Why did you put the weapon under the fire hydrant?
I wanted to be in a secure place for the police and out of the reach of someone to grab it.
How long did it take the police to get there?
Quite rapidly.
All right. And when they got there, where were you?
I was in front of my truck waiting for them.
When you fired the second shot, where were you?
I was in front of my truck.
When you fired the first shot, where
In
were
front
you?
of my truck.
Okay. When the police officers approached you, what did they say?
He gave me directives. I'm pretty sure I already had my hands up before he got past those parked cars down below me, waiting for him.
Did he ask you where the weapon was?
Yes, he did.
And what did you say?
I probably told him where it was.
It was how far away from you?
Oh, I was at the front left corner of my truck, I believe, and it was, the fire hydrant's over in the grass area.
5, 8 feet?
Yeah, 10, 12.
All right. But you pointed it out right away to them?
Immediately,
correct?
yeah, because I wanted him to secure it.
Now, there came a point in time when you were put in a cruiser, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. You're handcuffed in the cruiser?
Yes.
Okay. And what was going on in the cruiser?
I was put in the cruiser and the handcuffs were hurting me. I got the attention of another police officer. He came around, he was good enough to move the cuffs to the front of me because I got bad shoulders. And
At this point in time, Your Honor, we have a disc that's from the police car. We'd like to play it.
Yes, approach.
This is about 9 or 10 minutes long. I was just saying it's about 9 or 10 minutes long.
just wonder what's flooding, I don't know if you want it to be, but.
Yeah, I'm just fast forwarding through what matters.
Yeah, it's bigger in here than most of the yeah, go down this way, there's a cage here, but I'll walk down there. It's fine. I gotta get on the other side. Yeah. Yeah, maybe it'll fit in the car block. Oh, shoot. Oh, no, my dog, man. You have to back up from here, so you get out off the street. I'm gonna come back behind you. Where's my children? Up the block. What is, no one's told me how my children are. You get homework done. Yeah, I get to that. Hey, I want to go. Yeah, you do. Yeah, I'm leaving. Well, I wonder what you're going to do. Sure. This one down here is helping me. Yeah. No, I was just checking, dispatch real quick, let them know what I'm doing. No, I think I scared me out. Okay, I got your guys' ID. Okay, I'm still here, right, down the block. Hey, Chuck. I think I'm hearing you. Okay. The rest of the stuff on the dash to the 13th.
I can amend that page like that's where I was saying, I just want to get into that.
Thank you.
The rest of that stuff, they move the setback.
Where do you want to say if they're going to be with? Okay. Yeah, it looks that way. What will I do with my truck? Your truck, we will secure your truck. Okay. They'll secure your truck, so don't worry about that. They just want to get you up to the station, get you out of that scene, okay? That's fine. Thank you for being so kind. Well, like I said, we're just investigating the call. I guess. I guess you are. Yeah.
motive together.
6350.
No, that is.
Yeah, you know, that's something like that on the rest of them.
Mr. Knight, we see you, that was you in the back of that cruiser, is that right?
Yes.
And we hear some sounds in the back of the cruiser, is that right?
Yes.
What are those sounds?
That's me. I was crying. I was emotional.
I believe you asked, I think, 3 questions. One was about some diabetic medicine, is that correct?
I was out and had just picked some up from the drugstore earlier that evening.
So that was your first question?
And I'm not sure. It needs refrigerated. Actually, there's some missing before that that I'd asked about it.
The second question you asked about your children?
I was real worried about my children. And again, before that, I'd asked about them more.
And then you asked about your truck?
Yeah. For some
Then you were
reason.
making various sounds, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Knight, when you are on your way to Danmead, is there any discussion between you and your daughter about needing a gun
No.
because you're expecting trouble?
Of course not.
Is there any discussion when you're at the house and you know Kurt is going someplace? Is there any discussion about you and he about bringing a gun?
Absolutely not. He's going to meet police and
Right.
he's going to meet the police and of course not.
When you're outside your truck and you see this incident unfolding in front of you, what is in your mind?
In my mind, is Kurt's being hurt.
Where's your daughter?
She's over by the driveway sidewalk somewhere.
Right? Then you fire a warning shot, is that right?
Yes.
All right.
When this got heated.
Then things escalate.
Well, it had escalated, and that's why I fired a warning shot.
Right.
And then Keith
Then
Johnson.
it keeps escalating.
When I fired the warning shot, Keith Johnson started riding off.
And when the bike gets turned around and comes back toward, let's call it the black truck,
Right.
what's in your mind then?
Here he comes again, and then I realized Kurt was in the path, and then Michelle.
And Michelle is your only daughter?
Michelle's my only daughter, yes. My wife and I's only daughter.
And she's the mother of your only grandson?
Yes, she is.
And if something happens to Kurt and Michelle, what's the situation with your grandson?
He's without a mother and father.
Would that make him an orphan?
That would make him an orphan.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Knight.
Good afternoon.
You and I have met before, correct?
Yes, we have.
You testified in grand jury quite some time ago, correct?
Yeah, about a year. Next week, I think.
Mr. Knight, I'm going to ask you some questions today, okay?
Yes, sir.
And if I ask you a question you don't understand, you please let me know, all right?
Yes, sir.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the topics that your expert, Ms. Brahms, talked about, okay?
All right.
You heard some of the words that were used to describe you by Dr. Brahms, your daughter, and your sister, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Some of those words were hypervigilant, overreactive, hypochondriac. Do you remember those words?
Yes, I do.
Do you agree or disagree with those assessments provided by your family members and the doctor?
The doctor's the doctor, and I completely agree with her.
What about with your sister?
My sister,
Yeah.
she used a word for some reason, short fuse. I don't understand what that would.
Okay. So you disagreed with that.
Right.
Maybe what she was thinking about was being overreactive. Would that be similar?
I don't feel I'm overreactive, but
Okay.
I'll leave that to a professional.
All right. Well, if the professional says you overreact, then you would agree with that?
I will, yes, I will. You know, of course, I'm in jail, and stresses of that and anxiety of March, you know, probably plays a factor in it, not to make any excuses.
How about suspicious?
What did that pertain to?
Well, in regards to on the Dr. Brahms test under number 2 mental health profile test results, Mr. Knight presents as having atypical, meaning not normal, perceptions of the world around him. It would be an exaggeration to state he is paranoid, but he is anxious, suspicious, on edge, and may misinterpret situations. Would you agree with that?
I don't agree with paranoid, no.
All right. Well, that's what the doctor said too. She said that would be exaggeration to say you're paranoid. So you and the doctor agree on that point. Yes?
I agree with the doctor, but I don't feel I'm paranoid. I've been around paranoid people, and
Okay.
yeah, I don't see it.
You tested as rigid and tense. Would you agree with that?
If she says so, yes.
Inflexible?
What does that mean exactly, please?
I guess it's another word for rigid and tense, really.
Oh, okay.
Yes?
Okay.
And may have problems in quick decision making.
If that's her judgment?
What she put in her your report you paid for.
All right.
Okay. And you tested moderately for hypervigilant. You're always on the alert.
Okay.
Yes?
Okay, yes.
You would agree with that?
Somewhat.
And you see yourself as a protector.
I wouldn't say overly protective, no.
Okay. So there's a history of you growing up in which you recounted and gave a history to Dr. Brahms that, and I'll just read it word for word right from her report. Mr. Knight stated that the principal would physically punish him by beating him with a long board, especially picked out for Mr. Knight, and this would happen sometimes on a daily basis for no reason at all. He would be taken out of the classroom and spanked either in the hallway or in the principal's office. And this was on a daily basis, right?
I wouldn't say so much daily, no.
I'm
Certainly weekly.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm just recounting what
Okay.
the doctor is saying that you said.
Okay.
So is the doctor incorrect? Is she wrong on what you said?
I'm not going to dispute the doctor.
All right. So you then, if you're not disputing the doctor, means that you told the doctor that it was not a weekly basis, but it was a daily basis.
She says that, but I don't know how that would have come out of me. I wouldn't have said daily. I would have said weekly.
Is it possible that maybe it was weekly, but you had exaggerated to her?
Anything's possible, but I don't think I exaggerated to her, but...
And that's exactly what she said too, right?
Right.
Anything's possible.
Right.
All right. So you grow up in a situation where you are being abused at school. She says that your history of your parents with your parents is not very good.
Okay.
Would you agree with that?
At one point.
Okay. Well, to what point was that?
Part of the year 1964, probably.
So it was only during 1 year?
Yes.
Okay. So when she puts in here about your childhood and your parents, I'm trying to find it here for you. It doesn't sound like it's only 1 year of your life. It makes it sound as though it's your childhood.
Well, things come and go. You hope they will get better.
And did that childhood stick with you?
Of course.
Do you believe it molded you?
It's probably had something to do with the insecurity, I'd say, not trusting so much.
All right.
After I left that grade school and moved to another city, to another grade school, and throughout those, away from that man, and quite fine principles, no further untrust there toward them.
How long did this happen with this principal?
I'm going to say from 1961 through 63,
So
early 64, I can't remember.
So 2 or 3 years?
Something like that.
And during those 2 or 3 years, you didn't feel comfortable enough with your parents to even tell them about this abuse?
No, I was afraid they'd take action. I was afraid my dad would get angry.
With you?
No, with the man. My dad's not a man to get angry, but I was afraid he might.
All right. So you wouldn't even trust your parents enough to help you when you...
I didn't know how to deal with it. I was too young.
Okay. So all these things, and you heard the Dr. Brahms tell us that the childhood, the years are the formative years that make a person. You heard her say that, right?
Yes, I did.
And so all those things that happened to you in youth made you who you are today, correct?
I believe so.
And those things were, would it be fair to say that you should have maybe had somebody who did a better job protecting you as a young man, as a kid?
If they would have known the circumstances.
Okay. Did she ever come home with bruises or from these beatings?
No.
Okay. I mean, and you reported that he had some thugs that he had beat you up, correct?
Yeah, he had some patrol guards that weren't ethical, let's say.
And so when you came home, did you ever have bruises from that?
No, it was just pushing and taunting and teasing, and telling me to walk backwards on the sidewalk, things like that.
Okay. Well, you reported that it was serious enough that somebody else, I believe it was a cousin, had his teeth knocked out in order to...
He was on monkey bars on the playground, and a couple of those crossing guards that are normally crossing guards came out there and grabbed his ankles and pulled him up, and he could no longer hold on, and he fell down and hit his mouth, knocked all of his teeth out in the front.
Okay. So when Dr. Brahms reports, and I'm going to read this exactly, he reports that the principal had a group of thugs, basically older boys who were on the safety patrol or had other privileges, who would do the principal's bidding. The principal told Mr. Knight that he could not cry or I'll break your back, and that he should never tell. To prove that point, he reportedly had his cousin's teeth knocked out by this gang of students. Now that doesn't say anything about monkey bars and him falling down.
The monkey bars was before that, and this incident where he says you'll cry or I'll break your back. That he usually only hit me one time. This day he hit me once, and then he made that statement. He hit me again, and that was the last time he got to hit me because his teacher stopped him, and I don't know whatever actions were taken after that. I never saw him again.
All right, whose teeth were knocked out?
My cousin's teeth were knocked out on the playground.
Your version sounds a lot different than what's in this report, right?
Read it to me again, please.
The principal told Mr. Knight that he could not cry or, quote, I'll break your back, end quote, and that he should never tell. To prove the point, he reportedly had his cousin's teeth knocked out by this gang of students.
Yeah, but it's not all at one time. It was when he told me not to tell, he put me in his Volkswagen van, drove me to my house, and
Right.
told me he was going to tell my parents that I was bad and stuff. And my parents came to the door, and he just normal conversation, and he left.
So,
He didn't carry out any threat like I was anticipating,
would you agree that Dr. Brahms writes this in a way that makes it sound like this principal told the thugs to knock your cousin's teeth out, and they did?
Well, I don't know that he told them anything,
Okay.
but
So Dr. Brahms got this all wrong.
I must have spoken it to her wrong. I told her about the situation with my cousin, but I never said that Mr. Coleman ordered them to do that. It's just they were the crossing guards, and
So you must have told her wrong?
possibly, yes.
All right. Would it be possible that you exaggerate a little bit?
No, I didn't exaggerate at all there.
All right. So let's get back to this forming who you are.
All right.
So you had all these things. I'm assuming you wished you had somebody who had protected you better, yes?
I felt all right in my life, except for that,
Okay.
except for the principal.
And you go on to meet your future wife.
Right.
And when did you meet her?
I met her in well, we actually been together. When we met, I'm not certain, but we've actually been together since November 7th, 1970.
Well, how old would you have been when you met?
Uh,
Or when you got together?
She was 15 and I was 17. We were both in the same grade. I failed 2 years.
All right.
I failed first grade because of mumps and so forth, and then I failed fourth grade.
All right. And so you were very protective of your wife.
Normal, I would say.
You reported to the doctor that you and your wife, you wanted to go to an Indians game and you wouldn't go to the Indians game with your family.
Well,
Mr. Knight, you're going to have to let me finish the question.
Yes, sir. Sorry.
Okay. you reported to Dr. Brahms that you wanted to go with your family to Indians games, but were so fearful that you would die that you didn't ever go.
My wife had always wanted to go to an Indian game, and I was reluctant because my sister, older sister, and her husband had went up to Cleveland to something, I forget the event, and they came out and their brand new car, the wheels were missing. You know, it was more concerns like that than certainly death.
Well, that's not what Dr. Brahms reports, is that correct?
I agree with what she reports.
Well,
I've been in shock since that March incident, and I've been having trouble a long time. And I'm not going to disagree with what I told her. I'm sure she got it correct.
are you in shock now?
No, I'm fine now.
All
I
right.
think I'm okay.
So were you in shock when you talked to her?
It took me several months to try to overcome this. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it was.
Yeah, I'm not faulting you, I'm just asking. Were you in
Yes,
shock? Were you in shock when you talked to Dr. Brahms in November of 2017?
I would say I was pretty much out from under that cloud. But I've been having terrible nightmares and stuff that these people are coming, you know, harming my daughter, harming my wife. Woke up one night and imagined my wife was missing. And of course, when I sat up, I saw her picture on the table and knew where she was.
Okay,
She wasn't missing.
I'm sorry, Mr. Knight, you've lost me. When are you talking about having this dream?
This is after the incident sometime.
All right. So was this while you were still in shock?
No, I'm probably out of shock by now, but I'm having these terrible nightmares.
Okay. So in Dr. Brahms' report, it says, Mr. Knight, and we're quoting again, Mr. Knight shares that he always wanted to go to a Cleveland Indians baseball game, but was afraid to because he was convinced that the neighborhood was dangerous and that people would be killed if they parked by the stadium. Period.
Sir, I don't remember saying killed. I remember all the other of them.
All right. So Dr. Brahms has exaggerated your account of what...
I hate to say that.
But it's true?
I just don't believe I used the word killed.
All right.
It sounds like paranoia to me.
Is it possible that you would have said die?
Let's say that's possible. I don't know why I would say die either.
All right. You know, did you read this report?
No.
You've never read it?
No, sir.
Okay. So you heard about this report for the first time when she testified?
Yes, and from you.
All right. So I guess it wouldn't do me any good to ask you what else in here you disagree with her about. Because you've never seen this before, correct?
I've never seen it, no, sir.
All right. So you think that saying that you would get killed if they parked by the stadium, that would be paranoia?
I think it would.
She reports that you gave a history of not taking long trips your entire life together. In 45 years, you maybe took 2 trips with your wife of any distance whatsoever because you were fearful. Is that true?
I don't remember that.
So how many trips did you take, long trips did you take with your wife in 45 years?
We went to Florida twice. Other than that, trips in Ohio.
So that would be correct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And she reports that it was because of anxiety. What was your anxiety about?
I don't know what she's referring to. You mean trips?
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right. So you and your wife had a daughter, Michelle.
Yes, we did.
What year was she born?
She was born Sunday morning, 10:23 a.m. It was raining quite hard. She was 4 pounds, 4.5 ounces, preemie, 20.5 inches long. She had colic bad. They had a hard time getting her. They wanted to get her to 5 pounds. The doctors did. They kept her a week and they couldn't get her there. And then they released her to us.
Okay. So obviously, under those conditions, you're a little girl. She's got health issues right to start with.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You're a new parent. I can only imagine that you would be extremely protective of her.
I was really worried. A really worried father.
But not protective?
Protective, yes.
Okay. And that didn't...
Trying to figure out how to feed her and get her up, her body weight up.
And did that protective nature that you had that started when she was born, did it ever go away?
Probably not.
You're not sure if you became non-protective of your daughter?
No, I'm always protective. She's told me I'm too protective.
Dr. Brahms reports that you're highly protective of your daughter. Is that true?
That's somewhat true. Or would like to be, you know.
Is it fair to say that you liked to control the circumstances and the environment around you because of your anxieties that you had about things?
In what way?
Well, she said you were rigid and tense, and that you and your wife lived a rigid life. Everything was kind of very rigid. You did the same thing. You had the same routine. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, we were... we were a match. We enjoyed the same things. Versus my sister and her husband, they like to go out and go here, go there, go to a show, go to Cleveland, do this, do that. You know, Karen and I were more reserved, let's say.
And reserved in what way?
We basically enjoyed staying home.
Well, it sounds like you would have really enjoyed an Indians game.
We would have. She was really into sports, watching Indian games and stuff.
Okay. And so you never did all these things because of those anxieties?
Just a concern.
A concern of?
A concern of maybe being robbed, or maybe, you know, like my sister, her wheels come up missing when her.
All right. So in order not to let life happen, you and your wife didn't go to Indians games, didn't go different places because you were afraid of being robbed and things of that nature.
Well, with concerns going to an Indian game, not concerns going locally somewhere, or like touring Washington, D.C. We didn't have a problem with that.
Your sister characterized you as being hypervigilant and misinterprets situations based on fear and need to protect.
My sister.
That's what it says here.
I don't know how to reply to. I don't know how to reply to that. Why she would say that?
So you disagree with that?
I'd have to.
Okay. So either Dr. Brahms got it wrong or she's wrong. Your sister's wrong.
Gosh, you got me in a corner.
Well, I'm not trying to get you in a corner, sir. I'm just trying to understand.
I'm trying to understand too. I believe Dr. Brahms is a professional, and I've seen when she explained her charts the other day, I see things that are right on mark.
Sir, do you feel some sense of anxiety right now because I placed your sister credibility against your doctor's credibility, and you had to decide which one was wrong or which one was not telling the truth, and putting you in that situation made you feel very uncomfortable, didn't it?
Not very uncomfortable, no.
Did you have any anxiety over that?
I don't think I was having any anxiety.
Well, instead of answering the question, you just said, instead of picking one or the other, you said, you got me in a corner. It was easier for you to say you were cornered than it was to pick which one you thought was wrong.
I see your point. Yeah.
So you don't like that confrontation, do you?
I've never been confrontational.
All right.
Or, I certainly wouldn't be on a debate team somewhere.
And you don't like conflict?
No.
All right. So let's talk about March 30th.
Yeah.
March 20th, 2017. Okay?
Uh-huh.
You just happened to be at your daughter's house that evening, stopped by, had some coffee, when this whole thing started, right?
Yes.
And you had your truck, which you told us how you would transport it. Now, sir, is it fair to say that you would not have been of any help to get that bike into that truck, correct?
I could have been. We've got those straps that we can hook up to the ladder racks and pull it up, but Kurt and Michelle could have set it up on the tailgate.
All right, but you couldn't. You couldn't because you've got a bad back, you've had heart issues, you're diabetic, you're not in a healthy situation to be lifting up a 150-pound motorbike, correct?
No, I'm not going to do it.
All right. So really, he didn't...
Probably. Like I say, I had a bucket full of cargo straps. I'm pretty certain of it in my truck. That, it's quite easy to throw those around and pull it right up there.
You're pretty certain?
Pretty certain.
Do you know for sure?
Pretty certain, yes.
Okay. And so really...
If not, Kurt has cargo straps.
All right. So really, Kurt didn't need you, he needed your truck.
Right.
Okay. Is there any reason why he didn't just take your truck?
Gosh, I don't know. I didn't offer it.
All right. Is there any reason why he just didn't take Michelle?
He was meeting with the police. He wasn't certain he was going to recover the motorcycle.
All right. So you go to leave. You never go to Leonora. Is that correct?
When we left?
Yes.
When we ended up, we didn't get to Leonora. He told us they were going to a different address or something.
And when you left, what was your understanding of what was happening?
Curtis was still trying to contact police or meet him at CVS. It's been a year. It's hard to recall exactly.
Well, I understand. Do the best you can, okay?
Right.
So when you leave with Michelle and you get in your truck and you start to drive, are you anxious at all?
No.
And why not?
Well, I'm just not.
There's nothing to be anxious about.
I don't believe so, no.
Okay. And so you go and you get in your truck and you drive to, you start driving wherever you're going to go, and then you hear that you're supposed to go to Dan Mead. Yes?
Right, at some point in time.
All right. And you get sidetracked and you can't find it, GPS isn't working, but eventually you get to Dan Mead, correct?
Eventually, yes.
And when you get to Dan Mead, are you expecting there to be police officers there?
Yes, I am.
And that would have made you feel comfortable, wouldn't it?
Well, yes.
All right. And when you saw the police officers weren't there, how did that make you feel?
I wasn't happy about it at all.
Okay.
I wouldn't say anxious, but I wasn't happy about it at all.
Well, is it true that you didn't have a good feeling about it?
I didn't have a good feeling about it, of course.
And I'm sorry?
I didn't have a good feeling because the police wasn't there.
And you felt bad, you felt like you had a bad feeling, and you felt like it was a robbery.
I felt it could be.
All right.
Since, is that unreasonable? They think Kurt's coming over there or someone to buy a motorcycle and they got $700 on him.
All right. So at that point in time, when you turn that corner and you don't see any police officers, right then and there, you believe or feel like this is a perfect setup for a robbery.
It didn't look good.
Okay. You have a cell phone?
Yes, I do.
And where was your cell phone?
It was in my pocket.
Your chest pocket?
Yes, it was.
And so did you then try and call the police?
Well, no, I hadn't seen anything to give me reason.
All right. but you weren't feeling good,
Well, I had that concern.
and you knew that Kurt was going to go tell a guy who possibly had stolen you his bike that he was going to take it from him. Correct?
Kurt never told me he was going to take nothing.
So what was he going to do?
He was going to recover with the police officers.
All right. Well, he was going to get the bike back.
He hoped, yeah.
All right. So when the police weren't there, what did you think was happening?
Well, I had no idea.
No idea.
Well, no, I had no idea. I'm not seeing anybody yet or anything.
All right. So when you pull up behind Kurt's truck. You saw his truck, right? You knew he was there.
Yeah, I was still basically in the middle of the street. You know.
What was in the middle of the street?
I was still basically in the middle of the street
Oh, okay.
versus right behind Kurt's truck. I wanted to get through.
And you pull up behind Kurt's truck, and what happens next?
Eventually, the man in the minivan moved that over and let me through.
All right. Well, nothing happened before that?
Nothing before that.
Yeah, nothing happened.
Well, Michelle got out of the truck.
Okay,
Is that what you mean?
Well, it's your version of events. I'm just know that that's what you told us before, so I'm
Oh, okay.
curious as to why you didn't tell us.
Turned on to Eastwood.
Okay.
Michelle, anxious, saw his truck, excited. Where's Kurt? I guess is.
Okay, so you weren't anxious, but Michelle was.
Yeah, she's wanted to go see what her husband was doing.
All right.
You know, I thought.
All right. So then you pull behind Kurt's truck. She gets out,
Right.
and you let your daughter out of the truck, not knowing what was going on, but knowing.
I didn't let her out. She pulled the handle and she's out of there.
All right. So you pulled up behind the truck,
Uh-huh.
and we're going to park.
I wasn't going to park behind Kurt's truck. No, I can't see where Michelle went. And I can't see Kurt or anyone else. So that's what prompted me to drive up.
All right. So you weren't
So I
parking.
could try to locate it.
You weren't parking. You were driving, and she just jumped out of the truck.
I got the truck stopped, but she was quickly out on the pavement.
All right. So did that make you nervous that she jumped out under the circumstances as you knew them?
I didn't like it because she ran off so quick. I'd felt much better if she had stayed in the truck and let me drive one up and turn around and see what the situation was. But she didn't do that.
All right. So she gets out of the truck, you turn around, and you don't go around the front of the truck to see where she is. You drive up the street, turn around, and park a little ways up the street.
As I drove up between the cars, I could see they were in front of Kurt's truck.
All right. Did you feel like you were in control at all?
I wasn't having any problems at all. I didn't think anything was really out of order other than they looked like they were, the verbal tones might be too much.
All right. And when you say the verbal tones, you're talking about both Keith and Curtis, correct?
Yeah, their expressions.
All right.
I was pretty close to him as I passed him right there.
So now, at this point, Michelle is out of the truck on the phone.
She's up around, she was up on the other side of Kurt as I came through. And yes, she's got her phone out.
All right. And so at this point, you're looking through the front of your windshield at this whole event. You have a bird's eye view.
After I parked, yes.
Yes. Okay. And so you have a perfect view of everything that's going on. There's nothing blocking your vision.
No, except it's dark out.
Okay. And at that point, you tell us how many people are there.
There was a bunch of people there.
Okay. How many?
Including myself, around 8, 9, or 10, I think.
Well, don't include yourself. How many people were down there where Kirk was? Kirk was.
Well, there's a guy, you want me to exclude the guy that was working on the cars and exclude the guy in the minivan? 7,
7 people.
roughly 7 people.
Kurt, Michelle, right?
Got Kurt, Michelle, and a man on the motorbike, 3 or 4 others. Yeah.
Because you told us originally in the grand jury that there was like 4 guys around Kurt,
Sounds about right.
okay? But you have not heard anybody testify about that throughout this entire trial, is that correct? Not one person, is that fair?
Okay, that's fair.
Okay. Would you agree with me that you were mistaken?
I was overwhelmed by fear at that time. I might have been.
Okay. So tell me, from pulling behind Kurt's truck and being completely calm with no issues, to going up making a U-turn parking to be overwhelmed with fear?
There was arguments going on. Michelle told, if I'm not mistaken, told 911 that they're getting aggressive with my husband, and this all started taking off.
Now that you had told us on direct examination that you couldn't really hear what the words were, but you were able to hear your daughter's words.
I could hear Kurt tell her at one point, and I think she'd already called 911, but I heard him at one point tell her to back up and call 911.
All right.
I heard that, and then I heard her comment.
All right, and you heard her on the phone talking calmly on the 911 call, correct?
I heard her come. She come up and got away from him. She backed up like he told her at this first point.
And she backed up.
She came up this way.
What's up this way mean?
Toward the dead end. She backed up when he told her to back up and call 911.
So now you're telling us she backed up toward you?
Not so much toward me, up the street.
Well, you weren't sure.
Up the sidewalk right here.
Now everybody
by the curb, and then she stepped up onto the grass at one point.
Everybody else has testified, and you've heard her,
Right.
testified that she was in front of 797 Dan Mee, which would have been further away than where Kurt was. Is that correct?
I don't place her that far over.
I know you don't. Everybody else does, though. Are you mistaken about that?
I don't think I'm mistaken about it.
So you think everybody else was mistaken?
If I have to have that thought, yes.
And even though you were telling us that at that point in time when you drove past there was yelling, verbal arguing, that you could hear Michelle's calm voice.
No,
Mr. Knight, I'm asking a question. You could hear her calm voice on the 911 call, but could not hear what was being said in the verbal argument.
No, because I'm driving past them. I can see they're all agitated, and I got parked, and I'm calm when I parked, except this argument ramped up immediately. I took down this license plate. I got out, stood in front of my truck.
Let's talk about that. You took down the license plate. You took down the license plate of the man that testified today, Mr. Bench, right?
I suppose that's what it was.
And the reason you took down his license plate is because in that little bit of time where you pulled up, saw him, now you told us when you pulled up there was no problems, right?
Yeah. They weren't into a full-fledged argument yet.
You passed him, did a U-turn, parked,
Right.
and then you took down his license plate number because you thought that he was the one calling the shots.
He and the guy on the dirt bike argued for 3 or 4 seconds hard, and then the guy in the minivan sped off.
All right. So in your view of what happened,
From my point of view, I'm not understanding what the argument was about.
all right, were you parked when you heard this argument?
Yeah, I was parked.
All right. So you were up the street, you were parked, the minivan's back was to you,
Yes.
okay?
And I could see the guy sticking his head out the window, and they were
All right.
arguing.
And they were arguing.
Yes.
You recognize that not one person in this entire trial testified that Mr. Bench was arguing with anyone.
It looked like an argument to me, and it sped off quickly.
So you were mistaken. Or they're all wrong.
I can only tell you what I interpreted, what I saw.
Which means that they would have to be wrong.
If you want to put it that way, yes.
Well, so now you
I'm
are...
not saying they're wrong, but I can only tell you what it looked like I interpreted.
All right, so if they're not wrong, then you're wrong. One of you's got to be wrong, right?
Judge, objection. This is battery.
Getting close.
Okay. I'll try to step it back a little. So,
Maybe
now,
not badgering, but confusing.
Go ahead.
all right.
I want to be helpful.
I'm sure you do. If you, at this point then, are you in the extreme fear you mentioned?
It was sometime after I got out of the truck and was in front of the truck that I got overwhelmed with fear. And that's when the man on the motorcycle, it appeared to me he was popping a clutch and ramming Kurt.
Okay, I thought you said just moments ago that when you were in that truck, you had extreme fear when you were sitting in the truck. Did you not just tell us that?
Perhaps I did, but it was nothing compared to what I was feeling when I got out in front and Kurt was, it appeared he was being rammed versus the man trying to push away.
So then you're not in extreme fear at this point?
I was in extreme fear.
Okay.
When I'm in front of my truck and it appears to me that the man is ramming Kurt and his hands are going over the
Okay,
handlebar.
stop. Let's go back.
Okay.
You're sitting in your truck, you see the van, and you say that you hear them argue,
They're shouting at each other, yes.
okay? Change it to shouting now. Shouting. The guy in the van gets agitated, these are your words, and
Yes.
drove away.
Yes, he did.
You took down his license plate.
Yeah, yes, while they were shouting at each other.
Why?
I didn't know who these people were. I was trying to, that was one way of getting some information for the police. I left it in my truck so they could find it, and not knowing what the outcome is going to be here.
Were you in fear at this time?
Yes, I was afraid. Mhm.
Okay, but not the extreme fear.
No, that came after I got out of the truck, went
Well,
around.
I'm not asking you when yet, just let's stay on point, okay?
Judge, object. Let him finish his answer.
I thought he did finish the answer when I asked him, was you were not in extreme fear, and he said, no, not yet.
We're getting a little circular is all, so I understand, but go ahead, ask your next question.
I'm extremely concerned when I'm in a truck taking down the license plate number. The extreme fear came when I got out. It was in front of my truck. And it's what appeared to be the man was popping a clutch and ramming into Kurt, to the point Kurt's hands were going over the handlebar.
Judge, I haven't even asked a question yet. I'm not sure what to do here.
Ask your
I'm sorry. Let's start again.
Just answer my questions.
Yes, sir.
You'll have an opportunity, Mr. O'Brien's going to get a chance to get up. You can say whatever you want to say to this jury, okay?
Yes, sir.
You're sitting in your truck, take down a license plate, you are in fear,
Yes, sir. Somewhat.
okay? Somewhat fear.
Yeah.
And you still have the phone in your pocket.
I don't have a phone on my mind. There's too much going on.
You don't think about
Yeah.
calling the police?
I don't see where it's going to help. Michelle's already talking to 911, and from what I've seen is going on, there's probably people called 911 before I got there, sir.
So you were just assuming that,
Yes, I was assuming that.
all right? And you didn't think it might just be, you know,
The lucky
a
call.
little cautious to go ahead and call anyway. Yes, no?
There was, this argument's ramping up too rapidly to realistically believe I'm going to make a difference making a 911 call when I see Michelle's on the phone.
And you had your Smith & Wesson on your side too, correct?
Inside my waistband.
Inside your waistband. Did that give you some sense of protection?
No,
and
it didn't.
security?
It wasn't on my mind.
Not on your mind. You didn't even think about that gun.
I didn't think about the gun.
All right. So you have a CCW license and you walk around with a loaded weapon with speed loaders and you don't even think about the fact that you have a gun in a volatile situation?
I forgot all about the gun ban.
Forgot all that. Okay.
At that point, yes, sir.
All right.
I'm sorry, what was your answer?
At that point, yes, sir.
So, what's the next thing that happens now? The van leaves, what happens next?
The van, they shouted back and forth, and it seemed like to me they were angry, very angry. The van sped off very rapidly, and then the lunging of the motorcycle intensed to the point that I fired a warning shot. And at that point, Keith Johnson drove off between the cars toward Eastwood.
All right. Prior to him driving off, there was nothing keeping Kurt from leaving, was there?
Only the fact that these people were around him, and I didn't know if he was intimidated by them or not. I know what we heard in testimony. But from my point of view, you know, it's just like if you got 3 deputies here beside me and 3 here, you know, I got a mental block, I'm not going anywhere. And I felt that's what Kurt was facing.
I have the 3 deputies around me and I don't have a mental block. I can leave anytime I want.
Yes, sir, you can.
So it's a matter of your circumstance, right?
Sure, sure.
And there was nothing there that made Kurt not able to leave other than there was people there?
Well, I got a man on a motorcycle, it looks to me like he's lunging into him.
Now, you testified in grand jury.
Yeah, I know Kurt, these other people aren't probably friends of Kurt's, they're probably with the other man.
Well, you knew the one was. You knew he knew Justin Badgett.
No, I didn't.
You didn't know that at all?
No, I didn't.
So that never came up in your conversation
No.
with your daughter?
No. At some point in time, I think she told me about he dating somebody or something.
When would that have been?
About a year ago, probably.
When?
While I was in jail, I think.
All right. And you told the grand jurors that when you got there,
Right.
and you drove past Kurt the very first time, when you
Right.
went by,
Right.
he was pinned against his truck by 3 or 4 guys, and he couldn't leave.
I assumed that because the man on the motorcycle had the front tire of the motorcycle between his legs, it appeared, and they were arguing. And
Now, today you've walked that back a little bit, haven't you? You're now trying to ease up on that he was pinned by 3 or 4 people against his grill of his truck, right?
I'm not easing it up. I felt that's what the circumstances were.
So then why didn't you tell us that earlier when you testified?
Probably relaxing from hearing other testimony.
Right. So basically what you've done is you've listened to all the witnesses in this case, you've listened to their testimony, and when they have testified to things that are inconsistent with what your statement was to that grand jury, then you mold your statement or version to fit the facts as apparently they must have been.
I'm not trying to do that at all, sir.
Is it just coming naturally?
I'm not trying to do that. It's just like we've heard testimony that Mr. Johnson did run up the street 5 or 6 steps. I disagree with that. He did.
We're going to get to that too, but you're
Okay.
right. Nobody testified about that either.
Right.
So he's pinned against the truck from the moment you pass him, in your perception.
Yes.
And you don't feel like it's necessary to call the police.
I'm sure I did. But Michelle was on the phone with 911 already.
Well, now you're sure you thought about it.
I'm sure calling 911 crossed my mind.
Didn't 5 minutes ago you just said, I wasn't thinking about that, there was too much stuff going on over there?
It crossed my mind, but I felt it redundant to try to make a call to 911.
Okay. So you didn't call 911, instead you get out of your truck,
Right.
and when do you pull your gun? Before or after you get out of your truck?
After.
So you get out of your truck, is it in your back?
No, it's in my waistband.
In the front?
Yes.
And you pull out your gun, and what do you do with the gun?
It was after it seemed like Kurt was taking serious injury from the lunging.
Okay.
I fired a warning shot in the air.
Now, you have heard Kurt testify as to how that all happened, right?
I have.
All right. And would you agree that based on his testimony, all of that took place because Kurt was the one who was trying to keep Keith Johnson from leaving?
I see that point of view now, yes.
So is it fair to say that you were clearly mistaken about what was happening?
It seems so.
Is it fair to say that everybody that's testified here in this trial has said, in their opinion, Keith Johnson was trying to get away with that bike?
That's what his friends have said, yes.
Well, that's what your daughter said.
Is that what she said too? Okay.
You were here, right?
Yeah,
That's what your son-in-law said.
right.
So now, everybody else has one impression, and Mr. Knight has another impression of his son-in-law being pinned against a grill, that he's being rammed by a motorcycle or a dirt bike, and this is all in your mind.
That's what I feel I'm seeing, yes.
All right. And that has not changed, has it?
No,
And at the time, we talked about, you told the grand jury that there was there was a guy on a dirt bike who was black, and I think there were three more blacks, and then there was a white guy.
exactly.
So that would be 4 black men and a white man, and not Kurt, right? Kurt wasn't the white man.
No,
And that, you're way off on that, aren't you?
I'm not so sure I am.
There was one black man, other than Mr. Johnson, correct? And one white man. You added 2 additional black men to that scenario, correct?
From a year ago, I remember telling you, there's the man on the dirt bike. Of course, there's Kurt. There's, I believe there was about 3 more black men, and there was a white man on the end, and he approached Michelle. And after testimony, I assume the white man that approached Michelle was perhaps Badger.
All right. Who she knew.
I didn't know who she knew.
Well, Mr. Knight, we're talking about taking a man's life, and you keep saying, well, I didn't know, I can't assume, I didn't know. If you're going to kill a man, shouldn't you know these things?
Objection, Your Honor. What kind of question is that?
I would argue relevant.
If you can answer, sir. Can you answer?
I did not know that she knew I couldn't even make the white man out. The other day, sitting out on the bench here, is the first time I ever laid eyes on him.
So you didn't see him that night?
I believe that is who approached Michelle, but it was dark and it was hard to see.
So you were in a situation where you believed it was volatile, you heard arguing, it was so dark you couldn't see, but you shot and killed him.
When I shot at him, I could see him. He was under a street light there. I think there's a street light. It was...
But when you shot him, you had already made a whole series of mistakes about what the reality of the situation was, didn't you?
Objection, Your Honor. He's admitted that he's made mistakes.
Sustained.
I'm only trying to tell you like a year ago.
Sir, I sustained the objection, so you don't have to answer the question.
You would agree that your perception of what happened is in absolute contrast to what every other witness in this case has said.
I don't know if it's every other witness, no.
All right. So, Mr. Johnson escapes your son-in-law, correct?
Right.
Okay. You know that now. And he loses control of the bike.
Well, yes, I knew that then.
Right? And he goes down
Right.
pretty hard.
Yes. The motorcycle did.
I'm sorry?
He stayed on his feet, the motorcycle came out from under.
All right. Now, everybody else disagrees with that, correct?
Oh, okay, let's see, yeah.
Do you want to change now?
No, I just want to tell you what I saw, and then what they saw, that's their point of view.
I understand. So you're saying he never went to the ground,
He never went to the ground.
but the bike did.
The bike absolutely did.
So the bike fell over between his legs and he never
The
went to the ground.
the bike never fell over between his legs. It came up on a wheelie, and the rotation of the back tire pulled the bike right out from under him, and into the parked car.
And so he wasn't on it when they hit the parked car.
No, it came out of his hands.
And so he then was able to do what?
He turned around, took 6 or 7 steps toward me running, stopped, looked, turned around and walked back and picked the bike up and started it.
When did the pills fall out of his pocket?
I couldn't see the pills. I saw him go like this with his shirt when he was running at me. That's all. I could see little
All right.
pills.
So he doesn't go on the ground, but you know now, you see the pictures that there's pills. Your attorney's pointed out many times that there's pills on the ground, correct?
Yeah, but I didn't see pills.
I understand that,
Oh,
but you know they're there now.
Sure.
So everybody's assuming that there were Mr. Johnson's, right?
Yes, they are.
Okay, so if he doesn't go on the ground, how do you explain those pills got on the ground? And your answer is because when he was running at you now, he was doing this?
No, he stumbled off the bike and he was going away from me, and he turned around, and I saw him, his hands moving around the front of his jacket or whatever.
And then the pills started popping out of his jacket? That's what happened?
I can't tell you if that happened or not. I couldn't see that.
All right, so he gets up, or he doesn't get up because he didn't fall down.
Right.
He's facing the other direction because the bike came out from under him,
Right.
yes? And you've already fired a warning shot.
Up in front of the truck, when they were in front of the truck.
Okay, but you fired a warning shot.
Sure.
And you said everybody ran?
Yeah.
Now, in the grand jury, you told them that you shot maybe 3 warning shots.
I was quite overcome with fear. I wasn't certain.
So are you mistaken about that?
Obviously.
Okay. And so you shoot your gun in the air, do you then reholster it?
No, I put it in my pocket.
You put it in your pocket?
I put it in my pocket. It's too hard to get it back in the holster.
So you put the gun in your pocket, and then Keith Johnson turns around after the bike comes out from under him and turns toward you, yes? The
Yes.
guy who just shot a warning shot,
Yes.
who has a gun.
Yeah. Who has a gun?
You had a gun.
I have a gun, yes.
So he turns around. Now, keeping in mind, he was trying to get away.
Right.
Instead, what he does is he turns toward the man with the gun and starts running at him like a football player. Was your-
I don't think he saw me with a gun or knew I had a gun or anything.
You don't think he knew you had a gun?
I don't think so.
You don't think he heard the warning shot?
I'm not sure.
Or you don't know?
I don't know. 'Cause
All right. So you're standing there.
at the time, I assumed, but he's vigorously trying to get away from Curtis, so
He's trying to get away from her.
from what I've heard today.
So he's still trying to get away.
From what I've heard today, yes.
All right. But in your mind, he was not trying to get away.
Well, yeah, after the warning shot, he was trying to get away for whatever reason.
So after the warning shot, he's trying to get away. He comes at you, and you see him glare at you. I think you described it.
He's glaring, you know, we're a long distance away, but
He puts his sights on you. you
it
said.
seemed like it to me.
Yeah. And you could see that even though it was dark.
Well, he's down there where streetlight's at.
So he's a good ways away.
He's a good ways away.
All right. And so he's running at you, and then what?
He suddenly stopped, and then he turned around and went over and started a dirt bike up. Started burning rubber and come back.
And so why was Kurt not able to get the dirt bike then?
I'm not seeing Kurt just at this point till he started coming back, and then that's when I saw Kurt was in danger.
So at that point, Kurt wasn't in danger because he was running away from Kurt.
When he crashed the bike, yeah, Kurt wasn't in danger at that moment. No,
And where's Michelle?
She's back over here with him somewhere.
over with him.
Yeah.
And then he turns back away from you for no reason.
Well, he said, his body language was angry when he turned around. He went over toward the bike and he pulled it up. I could tell he was angry by
Okay.
the fashion.
You sure he wasn't scared? I mean, he'd just been trying to get away, and some guy tried to stop him, and then somebody shot a warning shot in there. You don't think the guy might have been scared?
I don't know.
So he runs at you, turns around for no reason, goes back to get on the bike.
That's right.
Would it be fair to assume that maybe he was just trying to get away? Now he was going to run away, but you're standing there, and now he goes back, okay, I'm going to give it the bike again?
It would have been a lot easier for him just to ride off toward Eastwood.
Yeah, except for he fell.
Pardon?
But he fell, you saw that, right?
Well, he fell, but he started the bike back up. He didn't have to come back up this way.
All right. And when he fell, the bike spun around, didn't it?
The rear wheel slammed into the rocker panel of the car. Then the front wheel come back forward from the force and stopped, laying right there in the street. Sideways.
And he picked it up and got on it where it lay.
He grabbed it, picked it up, he kicked it, started at one time, and road rage began again.
Road rage.
Yes.
That's how you're describing this, as road rage?
He's on a motor vehicle and he's coming up this way.
So basically, you shot a man because of road rage?
I didn't shoot the man, but only because of that. Curtis came out in his path.
Kurt stepped in front of him.
Well, Curtis come around his truck for whatever.
Right. Kurt wasn't running away, was he? He wasn't retreating.
No.
And you decided, well, Kurt's not trying to avoid this situation, so I'm just going to shoot him.
I don't know what Curtis doing really.
All right, so you don't even know what Kurt's doing.
I just know he came out and he was in the path of danger.
And then you told us today that your daughter was in the path of danger.
Well, she was in here somewhere.
In where somewhere?
She was over in front of the truck somewhere, obviously trying to stop him.
In the grand jury, you told them, after being asked the questions at page 65, line 15, so you're the only one at this point that's in harm's way, referring to the shot. Your response was, well, I thought I was the only one until Kurt came out and then Michelle. I'm not certain. I know when I fired the shot at Keith Johnson, she was beside me. She screamed.
I thought she was beside me.
So you were wrong.
I was wrong about that, yes.
So you're shooting this man. You don't even know where your daughter is.
I thought she got across.
You called 911 and told them you had no choice because he was trying to kill your daughter.
That's right.
And you're telling us today that you don't even know where she was when this happened.
I finally realized she was over here in the path of harm's way.
Mr. Knight, how long did you have that gun?
Well, about 2 months.
2 months?
No, not 2 months. I'm not sure when I purchased it.
Okay. Do you remember, first of all, you did not use your gun when you took your CCW course, correct?
No, I didn't.
And that was in January of 2017, right?
Yes, it was.
And you told us that you weren't anxious to get a gun, and that's why you'd only had it a couple of weeks before this happened.
Right, yes, okay.
So you had your CCW license for about 3 months.
Right,
And then for about 2 weeks you had this gun.
right.
Yes? Now, Mr. Knight, you saw this, but I'm going to play this for you. And this is you Talking to who? Do you remember?
Yes,
Who are you talking to?
I'm talking to my daughter.
Who?
My daughter.
Okay. And this conversation, although I'm just playing a portion of it, do you remember it?
Yes, I remember I came out, this lady turned.
No. What was my question? Do you remember it? Do you remember my question?
I remember the video.
Mr. Knight, my question was, do you remember the conversation with your daughter?
Yes, yes,
And you remember this particular conversation?
yes.
They work down the first floor. And so the first floor was that little cafe there with the all stools and stuff. Yeah, that would go on the bed. The grandmother, which has to be important.
This is the grandmother, right?
Yes,
And that's who you're referring to,
yes,
and you're getting off the elevator,
yes,
correct?
yes.
Now, this is you coming off the elevator here,
I see that.
okay? And she is standing up,
Yes, she was.
all right? And when she sees you, she actually turns away from you, doesn't she?
She turned directly at me first.
Now, she didn't jump up,
Yeah.
did she?
No,
Watch your feet, Mr. Knight.
I'm watching.
Her feet never even moved, did she? Did they?
No,
She doesn't
Not
do,
much.
she doesn't do one thing, does she?
no, not from what I'm seeing here.
And then you refer and tell your daughter that you had a couple deputies behind you to deal with what was ever going on behind you, right?
But from what I'm seeing, I don't even know if I could have seen her face here, but I knew it was her.
The deputies don't even seem to notice her. And yet you're giving your daughter the impression that Keith Johnson's grandmother jumped up, came at you, and the deputies had to do something to restrain her, basically, from getting to you.
No, I didn't say they had to restrain her.
You implied it by saying the deputies dealt with it behind you, right?
The deputies could deal with it.
All right. She jumped up and came at me, or started at me. Did she do that?
No, she didn't.
So why in the world are you telling your daughter that?
I didn't mean that.
You didn't mean it.
No.
Were you trying to impress her?
No, I was not trying to impress her.
Were you trying to be, I guess in this report it talks about, wanting to be a man and having issues with that.
Right.
Was there something there that you're trying to impress your daughter with?
Could we please replay that, her movement and mine?
Nope. Hold on.
Yeah. Is there a little more back this way?
I'll go back as far as you want, Mr. Knight.
Right there, when I first come off, we made eye contact.
Say that again?
Right there, when I first stepped off the elevator, her and I made eye contact.
Okay.
And that's about it.
Is that when she spit her food out?
No, she didn't spit her food out. I seen her swallow.
Well, that's a lot different than almost spitting her food out, right?
Well, almost is not spitting her food out.
All right. And so tell me when it is that she starts coming at you. Okay, we'll do
No,
that.
she never started coming at me.
All right. So, Mr. Knight, what is this? Is this an exaggeration? Is it a lie? Is it delusional? What is this?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No, I don't know. from my point of view, we made eye contact, and she seemed surprised to see me. Like I'd actually come to court earlier that day than in the afternoon like normal.
Sir, on March 20th, 2017, a recent CCW license applicant, you passed your course. 2 weeks before this, you get a gun. You go out into a situation which you know, had to have known, could have been volatile. Yes?
No.
You didn't know?
I didn't think it was going to be volatile.
When you turned the corner and thought it was going to be a robbery, at least admit that then you thought it was volatile.
I didn't think it would be a robbery. I thought possibly.
I'll withdraw.
Wait,
I'll
wait,
withdraw.
wait.
I'll withdraw the question.
Ask the next question.
So you go there with your newfound friend, Smith & Wesson, and you see a situation, and you got your gun, you have your phone, and you choose your gun over your phone, and appear to be doing this to impress your daughter, maybe?
No.
To make you look manly?
No.
You stood in the street with a .357, and you pointed at a man who was trying to get away, and you pulled the trigger and killed him with one shot.
I did not shoot a man trying to get away. He was coming toward us.
That's your version of it, correct?
That's my version.
And everyone else you heard testify said he was trying to get away.
Objection.
Sustained.
Motion to strike.
Sustained, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you will recall the testimony of the other witnesses in that regard.
Was there any witness that testified or that didn't testify that Keith Johnson was trying to get away with that bike?
He was trying to get away with the bike, but he turned around and came back.
And at that point in time, you had no idea where your daughter was, and it was your son-in-law who stepped in front of him,
That's right.
and you shot him.
Right.
Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Mr. O'Brien, redirect.
We've heard references to your grand jury testimony, haven't we, Mr.
Yes, we
Knight?
have.
And this grand jury testimony took place about 2 weeks after this incident, give or take a day?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you've been in jail the whole time, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And we talked about your health situation on direct examination, did we not?
Yes, we did.
What was your health like when you went into the grand jury?
I had a diabetic episode. Not eating right, diet change.
I'm sorry.
Not eating right, a complete diet change, a complete insulin change. Pretty soon into the jail, I ended up over in the hospital because I collapsed. And,
As a matter of fact, did they have to continue the grand jury for you for a couple days because you went into the hospital?
the day I was supposed to make an appearance, I collapsed. For TV court, I think it was.
Nothing further now.
May I? Mr. Knight, you just confused us. When did you have this episode? Was it before or after grand jury?
Oh, it was before. I mean, when I collapsed and they took me to the hospital, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes. And then in the grand jury, I had a sugar drop or something and was in trouble when I was in the grand jury with you.
I thought you just said you had it when you had TV court.
Yes, sir. To back up, the morning I was going to TV court, I collapsed. They couldn't get a blood pressure on me. And they ended up, paramedics taking me to Akron General Hospital.
And that was arraignment, yes? TV court's arraignment?
Probably.
That's not grand jury.
No, it wasn't grand jury.
So you collapsed twice?
No.
Okay.
I collapsed when we're talking about, and later on while I was in a grand jury with you, I was having a diabetic episode.
All right.
You couldn't tell?
Did you say anything?
No.
So you've had the transcript.
I'd never had a diabetic episode before. I've been warned about medication changes and stuff, and I hadn't ate since 5:30 that morning.
So is that the reason why you didn't tell us you were having a diabetic episode, because you didn't know you were?
I didn't know what I was having when I was with you.
Did you ever express in the grand jury, we had the transcript, any discomfort whatsoever?
Only that I was trying to do the best I could, and I wanted to get through it with you.
Did you ever ask for a break?
No, sir, I didn't ask for
Did you ever ask for water or candy or cookie or anything?
No, it never crossed my mind of...
And since that time, since you made that oath, sworn statement under oath, you've had that transcript for months, haven't you?
I've had it some time.
You and your counsel, right?
Right.
Are you telling us now that we should disregard everything in your transcript now? That none of that was true or none of it was accurate because you were having an episode?
I don't want to tell you that, no.
Did you go through your transcript and say, hey, you know what? This is all wrong. We need to let them know that this is all incorrect. Did you ever do that?
No.
So instead, you wait to come here today to tell us a different version of what you told us in grand jury, correct?
I'm not trying to tell you a different version.
But you did. And now you're blaming it on an episode you had in grand jury. Is that fair?
Your Honor, you can say that.
Sustained.
So what are you doing?
I don't know, what am I doing?
I have nothing.
Nothing.
Mr. Knight, you may step down.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Mr. O'Brien?
Judge, subject to the introduction of our exhibits, the defense rests.
Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the defense has now rested its case. As we discussed at the beginning, that leaves the potential for rebuttal evidence on behalf of the state, the closing arguments of counsel, and the instructions of law to you from me. Given that it's approaching 3:45 now, I think we will recess for the evening and for the weekend. When we reconvene on Monday morning, then we should be able to proceed with those last three parts of trial, likely Monday morning. And then at that point, you will be dismissed to deliberate upon your verdict. So once again, until we get through the closing arguments and the instructions of law, obviously very important things for your consideration, you are not to discuss this matter amongst yourselves. Do not begin deliberating. Do not discuss this matter with anyone else. And once again, should you happen to see any publicity or do not do research about the case, if you should happen to see something about the case, you're instructed to immediately turn it off, put it away, disregard it, and let us know that if that should happen over the weekend. Understood? All right, so everyone have a good weekend. If you would report back here at 8:45 on Monday morning, we will reconvene at that time. Thank you.
All rise.